Well, hello there, my dear. I'm so glad you could join me today. Life is full of lessons, and today I'm going to share some thoughts on how patience can lead you to better opportunities, how kindness can have lasting effects, and how embracing change can lead to growth. We'll also talk about the value of hard work, the joy of simplicity, and how learning from our mistakes helps us become stronger. I'll share some wisdom on building strong relationships, making the most of our time, and finding peace in solitude. And lastly, we'll touch on how practicing gratitude daily can truly transform your outlook on life. But before we dive in, if you're enjoying this little chat, don't forget to like and subscribe. That way, you'll get more of these stories and life lessons every week. Now, let's get started, shall we? Patience. Patience. It's something I've learned over the years, something I never quite understood when I was younger, but something that has proven time and again to be one of life's greatest gifts. I used to think that life was all about quick decisions and fast results. You want something, you go out and get it. That's how I thought the world worked. But as the years went by, and as I started to see things from a longer perspective, I realized that patience is not just about waiting. It's about waiting with purpose, waiting with peace, and waiting for the right moment. Let me take you back to when I was a young man, full of energy, eager to prove myself. I was always rushing around trying to get ahead, whether it was in my career, my relationships, or even just day-to-day life. I felt like I had to move quickly to stay ahead of the pack. I wanted everything now. I wanted success. I wanted recognition. I wanted things to happen as fast as possible. It was a restless kind of hunger, a feeling that I had to catch up with everyone else, to beat the clock before it ran out. But life has a funny way of showing you that it's not a race. I learned that lesson the hard way. It all started with my first big job. I was young, hungry, and I thought I knew everything. I had just graduated college, and there was this big opportunity at a company that everyone wanted to work for. I had the qualifications, the ambition, and I figured if I just pushed a little harder, I could land the position. So I did everything I could think of to speed up the process. I applied with every ounce of energy I had. I networked with anyone who could help. I even took on extra work just to stand out. But in my haste, I overlooked one thing. I hadn't stopped to think about whether I was ready for the position. I didn't take the time to truly understand what I was getting into. When the day finally came, I got the job. I was elated, of course, but over time, I started to realize that it wasn't the dream job I had imagined. There were things I hadn't considered: the long hours, the pressure, the stress. I had rushed into it, and I wasn't prepared for what was on the other side. It wasn't until I took a step back and gave myself the time to learn and adjust that I truly understood the value of patience. You see, patience isn't about doing nothing. It's not about sitting back and waiting for life to just hand you things. No, patience is about taking the time to reflect, to understand, to prepare. It's about letting things unfold at their own pace without trying to force them. When I finally understood that, things started to change. I started making better decisions, and I found that when I allowed myself to wait for the right moment, life seemed to bring me better opportunities. One of the biggest moments when patience really taught me something valuable was in my personal life. There was a time when I was younger, and I thought I had to find the perfect partner right away. I thought I had to settle down, get married, and start a family before I was too old. I didn't let things flow naturally. I rushed into relationships, trying to make them work, trying to force a connection that wasn't quite right. But every time I did, something felt off. I wasn't being true to myself, and I wasn't giving myself the time I needed to truly understand who I was and what I wanted in a partner. It wasn't until I met your grandmother that I understood the power of patience in relationships. We didn't rush into anything. We took our time getting to know each other, learning about our values, our hopes, and our dreams. We allowed the relationship to grow slowly, naturally, and when we did finally decide to get married, it felt like the right time. There was no rushing, no pressure. We simply knew that we were ready for the next step. Looking back, I realize now that waiting for the right moment in both my career and my personal life was what truly led me to where I am today. It wasn't the hasty decisions, the rushed actions, or the moments of impatience that got me here. It was the quiet moments, the times when I allowed myself to just breathe, to think, and to wait for the right opportunities to come along. Now, let me tell you something, my dear. Patience doesn't mean you sit around doing nothing. Far from it. Patience is about doing the work when it's needed and then giving yourself the time to rest when it's time to rest. It's about knowing when to act and when to step back. It's about understanding that things will unfold in their own time. And sometimes the best thing you can do is wait. There's a saying that goes, "Good things come to those who wait." And while that's true, I've come to learn that it's more than just waiting. It's about knowing what you're waiting for, understanding why you're waiting, and being at peace during the wait. If you're waiting for something that's truly right for you, then there's no need to rush. Everything will fall into place in its own time. And when it does, you'll be ready. I'll tell you something too. Patience brings peace. When you're not constantly rushing around, when you're not always thinking that you have to be doing something all the time, you start to feel more at ease. You stop worrying about what's next, and you start appreciating the moment. You start seeing the beauty in the quiet, in the pauses between the action. There was a time when I was rushing so much I didn't even notice how much beauty I was missing. The little moments, the way the sun sets over the hills, the sound of birds singing in the morning, the simple joy of having a good conversation with someone you love. Patience teaches you to slow down and enjoy those moments because you realize that life isn't about what's coming next. It's about what's happening right now. So, if you're feeling impatient about something in your life, whether it's waiting for the right job, the right relationship, or the right opportunity, just remember, sometimes the best thing you can do is take a step back. Trust that the right thing will come along when the time is right. And in the meantime, take the time to appreciate where you are because this moment is just as important as the next one. I've lived a long life and I've seen how things unfold when you let them. I've seen how the moments when I waited patiently led to the greatest rewards and how the times when I rushed ended in regret. I've learned that there's no need to rush through life. Everything comes in its own time, and the best moments are the ones that come when you least expect them. So take it from an old man who's been around the block a few times. Patience isn't just about waiting for the right moment. It's about making the most of the moments you have right now and trusting that the right things will come when you're ready. Life has a funny way of teaching you that, but when you get it, it's like a weight is lifted off your shoulders. The world slows down, and you find peace in the quiet moments. That, my dear, is the power of patience. Kindness. You know, there's something special about kindness. I'm not talking about grand gestures or big heroic acts. I'm talking about the small, quiet things that we do every day. The things that don't seem like much at the time, but can have a ripple effect that lasts far longer than we ever realize. I've seen it firsthand, how one small act of kindness can change a person's day, their outlook on life, and sometimes even their entire path. I wasn't always as aware of the power of kindness as I am now. In my younger days, I was a little more focused on myself. I was busy, always running around, trying to build my career, trying to make a name for myself. And if I'm being honest, I didn't always take the time to think about how my actions affected others. But as the years went by, and as I began to see the world through different eyes, I started to realize just how important kindness really is. Let me tell you a story from when I was younger. I was just starting out in my career, and I was working at this small company. It was a tough job, and I had to prove myself every single day. I was constantly working late, staying up late nights, trying to meet deadlines and trying to get ahead. But I didn't have the easiest time making friends at work. People were always so busy, so focused on their own work, that there wasn't a lot of time for camaraderie. One day, there was a man in the office who seemed particularly down. He wasn't his usual cheerful self, and I noticed that he looked a little tired, a little worn out. Now, I didn't know his full story, but I could tell something wasn't right. I remember feeling this nudge in my heart, a feeling that I should do something to lift his spirits. But at the time, I didn't know how. After all, I was in the same boat. I was stressed and busy too, and I didn't have time to really pay attention to anyone else, but something kept gnawing at me, so I decided to do something small. I went over to his desk and said, "Hey, how's it going?" It wasn't much, but I made sure to ask it with a little more sincerity than I usually would. I asked him how his day was going, and instead of just letting it slide, I genuinely listened when he spoke. And you know what? He opened up. He talked about how he had been struggling with some personal issues at home, how he felt overwhelmed with work, and how he just couldn't seem to get on top of things. I didn't have any great advice for him. I didn't have the magic words that would make everything better. But what I did have was my ear, my attention, and my empathy. I told him that if he ever needed to talk, I was there, and I meant it. That was it. Just a simple moment of kindness. Nothing big, nothing grand. But the next day, he came in with a brighter smile, and over the following weeks, I could see that he seemed to have a little more pep in his step. We never became the best of friends, but that small moment of kindness helped him in ways I couldn't have imagined. It was then that I started to realize how much of an impact those small, simple acts of kindness could have on others. I don't think he even remembered the conversation we had, but I did. And I carried that lesson with me for the rest of my life. That you never really know what someone else is going through. You never know how much a small act of kindness could help them through their day, their week, or even a tough time in their life. That little moment, that simple act of giving a damn, can make all the difference. As the years went on, I kept that lesson close to my heart. I started making more of an effort to be kind to those around me. Whether it was holding the door open for someone, offering a kind word, or just listening when someone needed to talk, I began to see how kindness had a ripple effect. It wasn't always immediately obvious, but over time, I noticed that people seemed to respond differently when they were treated with kindness. It wasn't just about making someone else's day a little better, although that was part of it. It was about creating an atmosphere where people felt safe, valued, and seen. When you show kindness to someone, you're telling them, hey, you matter. I see you. I care about you. And in a world where so many people feel overlooked or unheard, that simple acknowledgement can be more powerful than you might imagine. Now, let me tell you about something else that happened. Something that taught me just how lasting the effects of kindness can be. This time, it was with someone I'd known for years, a good friend of mine. We'd been through a lot together, but like all friendships, we had our ups and downs. There was a time when he went through a difficult breakup, and it seemed like he was falling apart. He wasn't the same guy anymore. He stopped showing up for our usual gatherings, stopped returning calls, and he just seemed to withdraw into himself. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to push him, but I also didn't want him to feel like I was abandoning him. So I did what I knew best. I reached out with a simple act of kindness. I called him up one day and said, "Hey, I've been thinking about you. I don't know what you're going through, but I just wanted you to know I'm here if you need anything, even if it's just to talk." And that was it. No pressure, no expectations. He didn't respond right away, but a few days later, he called me. He thanked me for reaching out. And from that moment on, we started talking more regularly. It wasn't all fixed overnight, but slowly I could see him coming back to life. He started showing up again, and over time, he was able to open up more about what had been going on. It wasn't my grand words that saved him. It wasn't anything I did that made everything okay. It was simply showing him kindness, being there when he needed someone and not letting him feel alone. And that's what kindness does. It doesn't always solve the problem, but it makes the problem a little easier to bear. It gives people hope, even when they might not have much left. It reminds them that they matter, that someone sees them, that someone cares. I've learned that kindness isn't just something you do for others, it's something you do for yourself, too. When you give kindness, you get it back in ways you might not expect. It's like planting seeds in a garden. You don't always see them grow right away, but over time, those seeds sprout and blossom into something beautiful. Kindness has a way of coming back to you, even if it's not from the person you gave it to. Now, I'll tell you something important. Kindness doesn't always come easily. It's not always convenient. Sometimes we're so caught up in our own lives and our own struggles that it's hard to take the time to be kind to others. But here's the thing. Kindness isn't just about the big moments. It's about the small, everyday choices. It's about choosing to see the best in others, even when it's hard. It's about offering a smile to a stranger, lending a hand to someone who needs it, or simply listening when someone is having a tough time. These small acts add up over time, and before you know it, you've created a world of kindness around you. And when you do that, when you live a life full of kindness, you not only change the lives of others, but you also change your own. You find yourself surrounded by people who are kind to you, people who support you, and people who make your life better. You begin to see that the more kindness you give, the more kindness comes back to you. That's why, my dear, I've always believed that kindness is the most important thing we can give to each other. It doesn't cost a thing, it doesn't take much effort, but it has the power to change lives in ways we'll never fully understand. So remember this: be kind. Be kind when it's easy, and be kind when it's hard. Be kind to others, and be kind to yourself. And know that the smallest act of kindness can have a lasting impact. You may never know the full extent of your kindness, but rest assured it will make a difference. That, my dear, is the importance of kindness. Embracing change. Ah, change. Now, that's a word that used to send a chill down my spine when I was younger. You see, I've always been someone who liked things to be steady, predictable. When I was young, I thought that the best way to live was to find something comfortable, something that felt safe, and stick with it. If you had a good job, a good home, and a good routine, why mess with it? That's what I thought anyway. But life, as you'll soon come to learn, doesn't always follow the neat little path we plan for it. Life is unpredictable, and if you're not careful, it can knock you off your feet without any warning. When I think back on my life, I can't help but smile because the biggest moments of growth and the most exciting adventures I've had came from embracing change. But it took me a long time to get to that point, to learn that change, while uncomfortable and sometimes downright scary, is really just a part of the journey, a necessary part, I might add. Let me take you back to a time in my younger years when change first really caught me off guard. I had just finished college, and I thought I had my whole life figured out. I had a plan, a good job lined up, a house to move into, and everything was supposed to go according to that plan. I was going to work my way up the ladder, make a decent living, and retire happy. The whole thing seemed so simple, but life, as it often does, had other plans. Just a few months into my job, there was a huge shakeup at the company. The business was sold to a larger corporation, and suddenly, everything I thought was secure felt uncertain. People were losing their jobs, management was changing, and the whole office environment turned into a whirlwind of confusion. I remember walking in one day, and it felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. All the familiar faces, the routines, the plans I had made, they were all being upended. It was terrifying. For the first time in my life, I was faced with something I didn't know how to handle. I remember calling my father, not knowing what to do. He had always been a steady influence on me, the kind of man who never seemed to get rattled. I'll never forget what he said to me that day. "Son, life's going to throw a lot of changes your way. It's what you do with them that matters. You can either resist change and spend your time fighting it, or you can embrace it and see where it takes you." At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I knew he was trying to help me see something important. That moment, that conversation, marked the beginning of a big shift for me. I decided that instead of fighting the changes, I would try to embrace them. I took a deep breath, gathered what little courage I had left, and started looking for new opportunities. I didn't know what would come next, but I knew that I had to move forward. And you know what? It turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. I didn't know it at the time, but that experience set the tone for the rest of my life. Over the years, I would face many more moments of uncertainty and upheaval. There were more job changes, family moves, and even a few personal losses that forced me to confront change in ways I never imagined. But each time, I learned a little more about myself and the world around me. There's something powerful about embracing change. It's like stepping into the unknown, not knowing what's on the other side, but trusting that you'll figure it out as you go along. It's not always easy, and it's certainly not always comfortable, but it's necessary if you want to grow. Change opens up new possibilities, new experiences, and sometimes even new versions of yourself that you didn't know existed. Let me tell you about a time when change came calling in the form of a move. After a few years in the same town, I was offered a job in a city far from home. It was an exciting opportunity, but also a daunting one. I had never lived anywhere else. My friends were here, my family was here, and I felt like I was part of the community. The thought of leaving everything behind was overwhelming. What if I didn't like the new city? What if I couldn't make new friends? What if I failed? But in the end, I decided to take the leap. We packed up our things, said our goodbyes, and moved to that unfamiliar place. And you know what? It was hard at first, really hard. But once I allowed myself to embrace that change, once I started saying yes to the new experiences, everything began to shift. I met people from all walks of life. I discovered new things about myself. Things I hadn't known were there. I learned how to adapt, how to find my place in a new environment, and how to see opportunities where others saw only obstacles. It wasn't easy, mind you. There were days when I thought I made the wrong choice. There were nights when I missed the familiarity of home, the comfort of knowing exactly what to expect. But in the end, that move was one of the best things I ever did. It forced me to grow. It forced me to think differently, to see the world in new ways, and to open myself up to opportunities I never would have considered before. And that's what embracing change does. It stretches you, it pushes you outside of your comfort zone, and it opens you up to new possibilities. Without those changes, I would have never had the experiences that shaped who I am today. I would have stayed stuck in the same old routines, never knowing what I was capable of. Now, as I look back on my life, I see that change has been a constant companion. It's been there in the good times and the tough times, in the quiet moments and the chaotic ones. Change has shaped me in ways I could never have imagined, and while it wasn't always easy, I'm grateful for every moment of it. Because in the end, it's the changes that have brought me the most joy, the most growth, and the most fulfillment. When you're young, it's easy to think that everything needs to stay the same. You want things to be stable, predictable, and comfortable. But as you get older, you begin to realize that the beauty of life is in its unpredictability. The surprises, the twists and turns, the things you never saw coming, they're what make life worth living. Without change, there would be no growth. Without change, there would be no new experiences. And without change, there would be no adventure. But let me tell you, embracing change isn't always about seeking out the next big adventure. Sometimes it's about adjusting to the small changes that come your way every day. It's about accepting the inevitable changes that happen in life, like aging, like loss, like shifting priorities. Those changes can be hard, but they're also an opportunity to grow, to let go of what no longer serves you and make room for the things that truly matter. I've come to understand that change is something to be grateful for, not fearful of. It's a chance to become the person you're meant to be. And if you embrace it, if you approach it with an open heart and a willing spirit, you'll find that life has a way of leading you exactly where you need to be. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying change is easy. It's not. Sometimes It hurts. Sometimes it's scary. But every time you get through it, every time you come out on the other side, you'll find that you're stronger, wiser, and more capable than you were before. You'll find that the things you once feared can become the things that propel you forward. So, my dear, if you're ever faced with a big change, whether it's something small or something that shakes you to your core, remember this: change is not the enemy. It's a part of life. It's a sign that you're growing, that you're evolving, and that you're moving towards something greater. Embrace it. Learn from it. Let it help you become the best version of yourself. Life may be unpredictable, but it's that unpredictability that makes it beautiful. And when you look back, you'll see that the times when you embraced change were the moments that truly shaped your life. That, my dear, is the power of embracing change. Value of hard work. Hard work. Now, that's something that's been a constant in my life. Something I've seen pay off in ways I never could have imagined when I was young. I grew up in a time when things weren't handed to you. If you wanted something, you had to work for it. And I'm not talking about working for a few weeks or a few months. I mean the kind of hard work that takes years. It's the kind of work that doesn't have immediate rewards. The kind of work that tests your patience, your persistence, and your faith in yourself. But let me tell you, my dear, consistent effort over time is what leads to success. It's what leads to the satisfaction of knowing that you've given your all, no matter how long it takes. Let me take you back to when I was a young man, eager to prove myself. I had big dreams, just like any young person. I wanted to make something of myself, to build a life that was worth living, and to provide for those I loved. But dreams don't come true by wishing. They come true by doing. And that, my dear, is where hard work comes in. I remember when I first started out in my career, I had just gotten my first job after college. It wasn't glamorous and it wasn't exactly what I had dreamed of, but it was a start. I was working at a small company doing a job that was pretty routine, nothing too exciting, but it paid the bills. And at first, I'll admit, I wasn't thrilled about it. It wasn't what I had imagined for myself. But I quickly learned that even the most mundane tasks are an opportunity to build something bigger. I decided that no matter what, I was going to put in my best effort. I wasn't going to let the lack of excitement in the job stop me from doing it well. Every day I showed up on time, did my work to the best of my ability, and tried to make a good impression. It wasn't easy. There were days when I wanted to just coast, when I wanted to slack off because no one was watching. But I knew that wasn't the way to build something worthwhile. So I kept at it. Over time, something amazing happened. My hard work didn't go unnoticed. Little by little, I started to get more responsibilities, more opportunities to prove myself. I remember the day my boss asked me to take on a new project. It wasn't easy. It required extra hours, more effort, and a lot of learning on the fly. But I didn't hesitate. I saw it as a chance to show what I could do. I worked day and night, and though it wasn't perfect, I poured everything I had into it. And when the project was completed, I was proud. It wasn't just about the success of the project. It was about the effort I put in, the hours I spent, and the determination I showed. That, my dear, is where true satisfaction comes from. Not in the end result, but in the process of getting there. I remember my father telling me, "You may not always see the rewards right away, but if you keep at it, if you stay committed, you'll find that success will eventually come. And you know what? He was right. As the years passed, I continued to work hard, always striving to improve, always pushing myself to be better than I was the day before. Slowly but surely, the rewards began to come. I got promoted, I got recognized, I was trusted with more important projects. The road wasn't always easy, but I learned that the value of hard work lies in its consistency. There's a saying I've always held on to. Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out. It's so true. The little things you do every day, even when they seem insignificant, add up. It's like building a wall one brick at a time. You might not see the progress immediately, but over time, those small, consistent efforts lead to something much bigger. Let me tell you a story about a time when hard work paid off in a way I never expected. A few years into my career, I found myself working on a long-term project that required a great deal of effort and focus. It was a big task, one that no one had taken on before, and there were plenty of people who thought it couldn't be done. In fact, I remember people saying, "Why bother? It's too difficult. It's too risky." But I wasn't the type of person to shy away from a challenge, so I dove in, not knowing exactly how it would turn out, but knowing that I had to give it my best shot. For months, I worked on that project. I stayed late at the office, worked weekends, and did everything I could to keep it moving forward. There were plenty of setbacks, moments when I thought it wasn't worth it, moments when I questioned whether I was on the right path. But I kept at it. I kept putting in the hours even when I was tired, even when I doubted myself. And in the end, the project was a success. Not just a small success, but a huge one. It opened doors for me that I never could have imagined, and it led to opportunities that changed the course of my career. That project didn't just change my professional life, it taught me a valuable lesson that hard work, especially the kind that doesn't get immediate recognition, is what truly builds something worth having. It's the kind of work that pays off in the long run, the kind that earns respect, the kind that builds trust, and the kind that leads to real, lasting success. As I got older, I began to realize that hard work isn't just about your job or career. It's about everything. It's about the way you approach your relationships, your health, and even your personal growth. There were times when I didn't want to put in the effort to stay in shape, or to be the best partner I could be, or to keep learning new things. But I came to understand that in life, you get out what you put in. If you put in the effort to stay healthy, to show up for your family, to keep improving yourself, those things will pay off over time. You know, one of the biggest rewards of hard work is the sense of pride that comes with it. When you know that you've given something your all, when you've stayed committed even when it was tough, you can hold your head high. There's no greater satisfaction than knowing that you didn't take shortcuts, that you didn't quit when things got hard. That's the kind of pride that stays with you for a lifetime. And let me tell you, my dear, the value of hard work doesn't just lie in the tangible rewards, the promotions, the paychecks, the recognition. It's about something much deeper. It's about knowing that you've done your best, that you've given it everything you have, and that you've remained true to your goals. That kind of integrity, that kind of commitment is what shapes who you are as a person. Now, I'll tell you something that's just as important as hard work itself. Don't be afraid to rest. Hard work doesn't mean working yourself to the bone until you burn out. It means finding a balance, knowing when to push yourself and when to step back and recharge. I've learned that the most effective work is done when you're refreshed and focused, not when you're running on empty. So, when you're working towards something, whether it's a career goal, a personal project, or anything else in life, remember this. The key is consistency. You don't have to do it all in one day. You don't have to see immediate results. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And over time, you'll find that your efforts will pay off in ways you never imagined. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see instant results. We live in a world where everything is fast-paced, where we're used to getting things right now. But real success, the kind that's lasting and meaningful, takes time. It's built on a foundation of consistent effort, day after day, year after year. It's the work you put in when no one's watching, when it feels like it's not making a difference. That's the work that pays off. So, my dear, remember this. Hard work isn't just about the end result. It's about the journey, about the effort you put in along the way. Stay committed to your goals. Stay dedicated even when it's hard, and trust that the rewards will come. And when they do, you'll know that they were earned, every single bit of them. That, my dear, is the value of hard work, the joy of simplicity. Simplicity. Now, there's a word I hold dear to my heart. I've lived long enough to see the world changed in ways I never imagined. It seems like every day someone is telling you that you need more. More money, more things, more success, more recognition. The world is constantly pushing us to strive for bigger and better, to chase after the next big thing. But let me tell you, my dear, the true joy in life comes not from the things you collect or the titles you hold. It comes from the simple moments, the little things, the things that don't cost a dime but are worth more than all the riches in the world. When I was young, I used to think that happiness came from having more. I wanted to make a name for myself, to build a life that looked impressive on paper. I worked hard, I built up my career, I acquired things, and I thought that would bring me the happiness I was looking for. And sure, there were moments of excitement. When I bought my first car, when I moved into my first house, when I got that promotion at work. But none of those things gave me lasting joy. The thrill of owning new things faded. The excitement of career milestones wore off. And I realized that no matter how much I had, there was always a sense that something was missing. It wasn't until I started to slow down, to appreciate the small moments in life, that I truly understood what happiness was all about. It was in the quiet moments, the simple pleasures, that I found my peace. And as the years went by, I came to realize that the pursuit of simplicity was the key to a fulfilling life. Let me tell you a story from when I was a young man. I had just landed a decent job and I was eager to make my mark. I was working long hours, climbing the corporate ladder, and doing everything I could to prove myself. But I was always rushing, always chasing after the next thing. I remember there was a day when I was so caught up in work that I didn't even notice the beautiful sunset outside my office window. I was too busy to appreciate the sky turning shades of orange and pink, the peacefulness of the moment. It wasn't until I left the office that evening that I realized what I had missed. That was the first time I truly understood that I had been so focused on my career and material success that I had lost sight of what really mattered. It was that simple sunset, that quiet moment of beauty, that brought me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. I learned that day that life isn't about constantly striving for more. It's about stopping to appreciate the beauty that's already around you. As time went on, I started making a conscious effort to embrace simplicity in my life. I didn't need all the fancy things that everyone else seemed to be collecting. I didn't need to live in the biggest house or drive the most expensive car. Instead, I started focusing on the things that really brought me joy, like spending time with family, enjoying a quiet walk in the park, or having a good conversation with a friend. Those were the moments that made me feel alive, that gave me the happiness I had been searching for all along. I remember the first time your grandmother and I took a trip to the mountains. It wasn't some grand vacation, mind you. We didn't stay in a fancy resort or visit some exotic location. We simply drove up to the mountains, found a quiet spot by a lake, and spent the day there. We packed a simple picnic lunch, sat by the water, and talked for hours. There were no distractions, no phone calls, no emails, no to-do lists. Just the two of us, enjoying the peace and beauty of nature. It was one of the most memorable days of my life. And the thing is, it didn't cost us a dime. It was just a simple day, but it was one of the happiest days I've ever had. I learned that the best things in life are often the simplest. It's not about what you have or what you can buy. It's about the moments you share with the people you love, the quiet times when you can just be present, and the simple pleasures that life offers every day. It's in the sound of birds chirping in the morning, the smell of fresh coffee brewing, the feeling of the sun on your face, or the laughter of children playing. These are the things that bring true happiness. These are the moments that fill your heart and make life worth living. I've also come to understand that simplicity brings peace. The more I tried to accumulate, the more I realized that material wealth often brings stress. It brings worry. When you have too many things, you spend all your time managing and maintaining them. But when you embrace simplicity, you find freedom. You find that you don't need all the stuff to be happy. You can live with less. And in doing so, you make space for the things that truly matter: love, friendship, health, and peace of mind. As I've gotten older, I've found that I need less and less to feel fulfilled. I don't need a big house or an expensive car. I don't need to be constantly striving for the next promotion or chasing after the next trend. What I need is time. Time to enjoy the simple things, time to spend with my family, time to be present in the moment. And that's what brings me the most happiness now. You know, some of the happiest people I've met in my life were the ones who didn't have much. They didn't have fancy clothes or big houses. They didn't go on extravagant vacations. But they had something far more valuable. They had a deep sense of contentment. They were happy with what they had. And they found joy in the simple things. I've learned that happiness isn't something you can buy. It's something you create by living with gratitude, by embracing the simple pleasures, and by finding joy in the everyday moments. One of the most fulfilling experiences I've had in life was when I started focusing more on the people around me than on myself. I spent so much of my early life worrying about what I didn't have, about what I needed to acquire, that I forgot what truly made life worth living. But when I began to prioritize relationships, when I started focusing on the love and support I had in my life, everything shifted. I found that the simplest things, a heartfelt conversation, a shared laugh, a kind gesture, were the things that truly made me happy. I've also learned that simplicity doesn't mean living a life of deprivation. It's not about giving up everything you enjoy or denying yourself the things that bring you comfort. It's about finding balance. It's about recognizing that you don't need excess to be happy. You don't need to keep up with the Joneses or compete with everyone else. All you need is to be content with what you have and appreciate the simple joys that life offers. Take a walk in nature. Take time to sit with a cup of tea and watch the sunset. Spend an afternoon doing something you love, whether it's reading, gardening, or just sitting quietly with a loved one. These are the moments that fill you up. These are the moments that make life truly rich. The more I've embraced simplicity, the more I've found peace. I don't worry about keeping up with the world. I don't chase after the latest trends or try to acquire more than I need. I focus on what brings me true happiness, love, health, time with family, and the beauty of the world around me. These are the things that matter. So, my dear, let me offer you this advice. Don't get caught up in the rush for more. Don't believe that happiness comes from what you have or what you can buy. Happiness comes from the simple things, the small moments that make life beautiful. It comes from appreciating what you have, from being present in the moment, and from finding joy in the everyday. Life is short, and the world moves fast. But when you slow down, when you focus on the simple pleasures, you'll find that happiness isn't something you have to chase. It's something you can find in every moment, in every breath, and in every day. That, my dear, is the joy of simplicity. Learning from mistakes. Mistakes. You know, when I was younger, I used to think mistakes were the worst thing that could happen to a person. I thought they were something to avoid at all costs, something that would somehow define you in a negative way. I was afraid of making mistakes, afraid of failing, and I believed that success meant doing everything perfectly. But, my dear, as I grew older and experienced more of life, I came to realize that mistakes aren't something to fear at all. In fact, mistakes are one of life's greatest teachers. Let me tell you, there have been plenty of times in my life when I have made mistakes, big ones, small ones, and some that I still think about to this day. But every single one of those mistakes has been a lesson, and in some strange way, I'm grateful for them. I've learned more from my mistakes than I have from my successes, and I've discovered that the key to moving forward is not avoiding mistakes, but learning how to embrace them, how to grow from them, and how to keep going despite them. Let me take you back to when I was a young man, just starting out in life. I had big dreams, as most young people do, and I was eager to make something of myself. I had just landed my first real job, and I was determined to prove myself. I wanted to show everyone that I was capable, that I could handle anything that came my way. But there was a problem. I was so focused on getting everything right that I didn't give myself the space to learn, to grow, and to make mistakes. I remember my first big project at work. I was assigned to manage a team, and I was excited, but also terrified. I wanted to do everything perfectly. I worked day and night, making sure every detail was just right, making sure everything went according to plan. But in my pursuit of perfection, I didn't allow for the inevitable hiccups that come with any project. I didn't anticipate the challenges, and when they arose, I wasn't prepared to handle them. I panicked, and it showed. Instead of addressing the problems with calm and confidence, I became flustered, made rash decisions, and ultimately The project didn't turn out as well as I had hoped. I was devastated. I felt like I had failed, like I had let everyone down. And in the weeks that followed, I replayed that experience in my mind over and over, wondering where I went wrong. I was ashamed of my mistakes, and I was afraid that they would define me, that they would be the one thing people remembered about me. But then one day, I had a conversation with an older colleague, someone who had been through his fair share of challenges and setbacks. He could see that I was upset about the project, and he asked me what happened. I told him the whole story, how I tried so hard to get everything perfect, how I was afraid of making mistakes, and how it all came crashing down. He listened quietly, and then he said something I'll never forget. Son, mistakes are a part of life. They're not something to be ashamed of. What matters is how you handle them, how you learn from them, and how you move forward. Those words stuck with me. At the time, I didn't fully understand them, but as the years went by, I began to see the truth in them. Mistakes are a part of the learning process. They're not something to run from or hide from. They're the very thing that helps you grow, that pushes you to be better, and that teaches you the lessons you need to succeed in life. Over time, I started to change my perspective on mistakes. I began to see them not as failures, but as opportunities to learn. Whenever something went wrong, instead of beating myself up, I would take a step back and ask myself, what can I learn from this? How can I do better next time? And when I made that shift, when I started to see mistakes as lessons rather than setbacks, everything changed. One of the biggest lessons I learned came a few years later when I decided to take on a new challenge. I had the opportunity to start my own business, something I had always dreamed of. It seemed like the perfect opportunity, the chance to be my own boss, to build something from the ground up. But I quickly learned that starting a business wasn't as simple as I thought. I made mistake after mistake, from misjudging the market to mismanaging finances to not understanding how to properly lead a team. It was tough. There were many nights when I wondered if I had made a mistake, when I questioned whether I was cut out for this. But I kept going. I kept learning from my mistakes, and over time, I began to get the hang of it. Eventually, the business became successful, and I realized that every mistake I made along the way had taught me something important. It had taught me how to be a better leader, how to be more resilient, and how to adapt when things didn't go as planned. I realized that the mistakes weren't what held me back. What mattered was how I responded to them. It was the resilience, the ability to keep moving forward even when things weren't going my way, that made the difference. You see, resilience is key when it comes to mistakes. It's about knowing that mistakes don't define you and that falling down is just part of the journey. The most successful people I've met haven't been the ones who never made mistakes. No, they've been the ones who faced their mistakes head on, who learned from them, and who used them to fuel their growth. They understood that mistakes aren't something to be feared. They're something to embrace. They're an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become better. But resilience doesn't come overnight. It's something that takes time to develop. There were times when I wanted to give up, when I felt like the weight of my mistakes was too much to bear. But what I've learned is that the key to resilience is persistence. It's about not letting your mistakes define you, about not letting them stop you from moving forward. Every time you get knocked down, you have the choice to get back up. And the more times you get back up, the stronger you become. I've also learned that mistakes don't have to be something that weighs you down. They don't have to be something that makes you feel less than. Instead, they can be a source of strength. When you learn from your mistakes, when you grow through them, you become a better version of yourself. You become wiser, more compassionate, and more understanding of the challenges that others face. Mistakes make you human, and they make you real. So, my dear, I want you to remember this. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't fear failure. Embrace it. See it for what it really is, a part of the process, a stepping stone toward growth. Every time you make a mistake, ask yourself what you can learn from it. Use it to become better, to become stronger, and to become more resilient. Mistakes are not the end of the road. They're simply a detour, a reminder that the path to success is never a straight line. And when life gets tough, when you feel like you've made too many mistakes to count, remember this. Resilience is about not giving up. It's about continuing to move forward no matter how many times you stumble. It's about knowing that each mistake is an opportunity to learn, and that with each lesson learned, you're one step closer to becoming the person you're meant to be. That, my dear, is what I've learned about mistakes. They're not something to fear. They're a part of life. They're a part of growth. And with resilience, you can move forward and become stronger, wiser, and better than before. Building strong relationships. When I think about all the things that matter in life, relationships are at the top of the list. Family, friends, neighbors, partners. The people we surround ourselves with are the ones who make life truly meaningful. I've had my share of relationships, some that have lasted a lifetime, and others that have come and gone. But in all the years I've lived, I've come to understand one thing very clearly. The foundation of any strong relationship is built on communication, trust, and love. Without those three pillars, no relationship can stand the test of time. Let me take you back to when I was a young man, just starting out in life. I had a lot to learn about relationships, and like most young people, I didn't always get it right. I thought that if you just spent time with someone, that was enough to build a strong connection. I didn't fully understand that relationships require more than just proximity. They require effort, vulnerability, and a willingness to communicate. I remember when I first met your grandmother. We were young, both just starting our careers, and we were full of hopes and dreams. It didn't take long for me to realize that she was someone special. But despite how much we liked each other, we hit a few bumps in the road early on. We were both from different backgrounds, with different ways of thinking, and we didn't always see eye to eye. I remember getting frustrated at times thinking, why isn't this working? But I was lucky, because your grandmother was patient with me. She taught me a valuable lesson, that in a relationship, you have to communicate. You have to talk things out, even when it's difficult. There was one particular evening when we had a big argument. We were both upset, and I was ready to just walk away. But instead of letting the silence hang between us, she gently suggested that we talk it through. And we did. For hours we sat together, sharing our thoughts, our frustrations, and our hopes. That conversation wasn't easy, but it was necessary. It allowed us to understand each other better and to see where the other person was coming from. It laid the groundwork for a stronger relationship, one built on the understanding that communication is key. Since then, I've carried that lesson with me in every relationship I've had. Communication isn't just about talking, it's about listening, really listening. It's about being open and honest, even when the truth is hard to hear. It's about expressing your needs, your feelings, and your concerns in a way that allows the other person to understand you. When you communicate well, you avoid misunderstandings and you create a space where both people feel heard and respected. But communication alone isn't enough. You also need trust. Trust is the glue that holds any relationship together. Without it, everything else falls apart. I've learned this lesson the hard way, and I'll tell you, trust is something that takes time to build, but it can be broken in an instant. I've seen relationships falter because of a lack of trust. I've seen friendships fall apart because one person wasn't honest, or because someone betrayed the other's confidence. Trust is fragile, but it's also incredibly strong when it's nurtured. It's the foundation on which everything else is built. When I was younger, I was naive. I didn't fully understand how trust worked. I thought that love alone was enough to keep a relationship strong. But over the years, I came to realize that trust is just as important as love. It's about showing up for someone, being reliable, and keeping your word. It's about knowing that when you say something, the other person believes you. Trust isn't something you can just say. It's something you have to prove every day through your actions. Let me tell you a story about a time when trust was really put to the test in my life. It was early in our marriage, and I was offered an opportunity to go on a business trip. It was a great chance for me to further my career, but it would mean being away from home for a while. At the time, we didn't have a lot of money, and we were just getting started in our lives together. Your grandmother had every right to feel anxious about me going, but she trusted me. She knew that I wouldn't make decisions that would hurt our family, and I kept that trust by being open with her about everything, every detail of the trip, every conversation, and every decision I made. That trust allowed her to feel secure, and it allowed me to focus on the work I needed to do without worrying about what was happening at home. But trust doesn't always come so easily. Sometimes it's tested in unexpected ways. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes people falter. And when that happens, it's easy to lose trust and to think that the relationship is over. But I've learned that trust can be rebuilt. It just takes time and a commitment to doing the right thing. It takes being open, honest, and transparent. It takes apologizing when you made a mistake and taking responsibility for your actions. Trust isn't about being perfect. It's about being reliable and consistent. It's about showing up when you say you will and being there for someone when they need you the most. And when trust is broken, it's about working together to heal and rebuild, brick by brick. Now, we come to love. Love is the heartbeat of every relationship. It's the force that draws people together, the bond that keeps them together. Love is what makes all the hard work, the communication, and the trust worth it. But love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's something you choose to give day in and day out. It's something you choose to show, not just in the easy times, but in the tough times too. You see, love isn't just about grand gestures. It's about the little things. It's about the way you show up for someone when they're feeling down. It's about the way you make time for each other, even when life is busy. It's about the way you support someone's dreams and help them through their challenges. It's about the way you listen, care, and put in the effort to make the other person feel valued and understood. I've been married to your grandmother for many years now, and I can tell you that love has been the glue that has held us together through thick and thin. But it hasn't always been easy. There have been tough times, times when we didn't agree, times when we were tired or stressed, times when life felt overwhelming. But through it all, love has been the constant. We both made the choice every day to love each other, not just when things are easy, but when things are hard. And that's what has kept our relationship strong. Love is about commitment. It's about sticking together even when it's not convenient or easy. It's about being there for each other, supporting each other, and growing together. And love is about forgiveness. No one is perfect, and there will always be times when you disappoint the people you love. But if you can forgive, if you can look past the mistakes and see the person in front of you, you'll find that love has the power to heal, to strengthen, and to endure. And when you build a relationship on communication, trust, and love, you create something that lasts. You create something that can weather the storms of life, something that can stand the test of time. You create a partnership that supports both people, that lifts each other up, and that provides a sense of security and comfort. There's nothing more fulfilling than knowing that the people in your life truly have your back and that you have theirs. So, my dear, if there's one thing I want you to understand, it's this. Relationships are the most important thing in life. They're the source of our joy, our growth, and our support. But strong relationships don't happen by accident. They require effort. They require communication, trust, and love. And when you build a relationship on those three pillars, you create something beautiful, something that will last a lifetime. That, my dear, is the heart of what it means to build strong relationships. Time as our greatest asset, time. If there's one thing I've learned in my many years on this earth, it's that time is the most precious thing we have. When we're young, we tend to take time for granted. We think there will always be more of it, and we believe that we can afford to waste a little here and there. But as we get older, we begin to realize that time doesn't wait for anyone. It doesn't slow down, and it doesn't stretch out to fit our needs. Once a moment is gone, it's gone forever. That's why, my dear, it's so important to understand the value of time and to make the most of every single moment. I remember when I was young, I didn't think much about time. Like most young people, I was caught up in the hustle and bustle of life. School, work, friendships, relationships. Everything seemed so urgent, so pressing, that I didn't always stop to appreciate the time I had. I was always looking ahead, always thinking about the next thing. I wanted to get to the next milestone, the next achievement, the next phase of life. I thought that time was something I had all the time in the world to use. But let me tell you, my dear, that couldn't have been further from the truth. I didn't realize how much time I was wasting until one day I found myself looking back. I was in my 40s, and I realized that I had spent so much of my life chasing after things, success, money, recognition, that I had missed out on the things that truly mattered. I had spent so much time working hard to build a career, to provide for my family, to achieve goals, that I hadn't stopped to appreciate the people around me, the moments I shared with them, and the simple pleasures that life had to offer. I'll never forget the day that really opened my eyes to this. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was sitting at home, flipping through a photo album. I had been so focused on my career, on building a life that I thought was important, that I hadn't taken the time to fully appreciate what I had. As I looked at the photos, pictures of my children growing up, family vacations, birthdays, holidays, I realized how much time I had spent working, how many moments I had missed. I felt a deep sense of regret, not because I hadn't been successful, but because I hadn't given enough time to the people who mattered most. That moment was a turning point for me. I began to understand that time is not just something that we pass through. It's the one thing that we can never get back. It's the one thing that, once it's gone, is gone forever. And that realization changed the way I viewed time. I understood that the time I spent with my family, the time I spent with friends, the time I spent in nature, or simply taking a moment to breathe, that was the most valuable time of all. Not the time spent working or chasing after material things, but the moments that fill your heart, that fill your soul. Those are the moments that matter. As the years went on, I became more and more mindful of how I spent my time. I started to make a conscious effort to focus on what truly mattered. I began to prioritize the people I loved, the experiences that brought me joy, and the moments of quiet reflection that allowed me to recharge. And I learned a very important lesson. The quality of the time you spend matters far more than the quantity of time you have. You see, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that we need to be constantly busy, that we need to fill every moment with something productive. But I've come to realize that the most meaningful moments in life are often the simplest. A quiet evening spent with a loved one, a leisurely walk in the park, a good conversation with a friend. These are the moments that make life truly rich. These are the moments that remind you that time is precious, that it's not about doing more, but about truly living in each moment. When I think about the people in my life who have made the biggest impact, it's not the ones who worked the hardest or achieved the most. It's the ones who knew how to make the most of their time, who knew how to savor the little moments, who made time for the people they cared about. Those are the people who taught me what it really means to live. They understood that time is a gift, not something to be squandered. And as I've gotten older, I've also come to realize that it's not just about how we spend our time, but how we use our time to make a difference in the lives of others. I've always believed that a life well lived is one that's lived in service to others, one that gives back. The time you spend helping others, supporting them, being there for them, that's time that matters. That's time that leaves a lasting impact. I remember when I was in my 50s, I started volunteering at a local charity. At first, I wasn't sure how much of a difference I could really make, but I quickly realized that just being present, just giving my time to help others, brought me more fulfillment than anything else. The relationships I built through those small acts of kindness, the difference I saw in the lives of those I helped, made me understand that the time we give to others is never wasted. It's an investment in something far greater than ourselves. But time isn't just about how we spend it. It's also about how we approach it. For many years, I was always in a rush, always looking ahead, always thinking about the next task, the next project, the next goal. I didn't take the time to enjoy the present. But over time, I learned to slow down. I learned that the present moment is the only moment we truly have. It's easy to get caught up in worrying about the future or regretting the past. But the truth is, that the only time that really matters is right now. I started making a conscious effort to be present in each moment, to really listen when someone was talking to me, to truly engage in whatever I was doing, whether it was spending time with family, working on a project, or simply enjoying a quiet moment by myself. And I found that when I stopped rushing, when I stopped constantly looking ahead, I was able to appreciate life in a deeper way. I was able to enjoy the beauty of the world around me, to truly experience the love of my family, to savor the moments of joy that life offers. And let me tell you, my dear, time is also about knowing when to let go. As we get older, we realize that we can't do everything, that we can't control every moment. There comes a time when we must make peace with the fact that our time is finite and that we must prioritize what truly matters. It's about choosing where to invest your time, where to spend your energy, and where to let go of things that no longer serve you. I've had to let go of many things over the years, certain expectations, certain relationships, certain ambitions, and it hasn't always been easy. But every time I've let go of something that wasn't serving me, I've made more room for the things that truly bring me joy, peace, and fulfillment. And that, my dear, is a lesson I hope you'll take with you. Time is too precious to waste on things that don't matter. Focus on what truly brings you happiness and let go of what drains your energy. As you move forward in life, I want you to remember this: time is our greatest asset. It's the one thing that we can never get back. Once a moment passes, it's gone forever. So don't wait to make the most of it. Don't wait for the perfect time to do something you've been putting off. Don't wait until tomorrow to tell someone you love them, to show kindness, to make a change. The time is now. Make the most of every moment, because you never know how many moments you have left. And when you look back on your life, I hope you'll see that you spent your time wisely. I hope you'll see that you invested your time in the things that truly mattered, in the people you loved, in the experiences that brought you joy, in the moments that filled your heart with gratitude. That, my dear, is what it means to make the most of time. That, my dear, is why time is our greatest asset. Finding peace in solitude. Solitude. Now, that's something a lot of people are afraid of. In a world that's always moving, always busy, always connected, the idea of being alone can seem intimidating, even uncomfortable. But let me tell you, my dear, solitude is one of life's greatest gifts. It's in those moments of quiet, alone time that we find clarity, that we grow, and that we truly come to understand ourselves. When I was younger, I was like most people. I thought that being alone meant being lonely, that solitude was something to be avoided. I filled my time with work, with friends, with distractions. I thought that if I was always busy, if I was always surrounded by people, I would never have to face the quiet, never have to confront myself. But what I didn't realize at the time was that by avoiding solitude, I was also avoiding the opportunity for reflection, for growth, and for peace. Let me take you back to a time in my life when I was facing a big change. I had just gone through a difficult period. I had lost a job I had worked hard for, and I found myself in a place I hadn't planned for, uncertain about the future and unsure of what my next step should be. I remember feeling like everything was spinning out of control, like I was being pulled in every direction. I tried to keep busy, to fill the void with activities and distractions. But no matter how much I did, there was always a sense of restlessness inside me. It was during this time that I learned the value of solitude. I took a trip by myself, something I had never done before. I went to a small cabin in the woods, just far enough from the bustle of the city to be completely alone. At first, I felt uneasy. The silence was deafening. There was no one around, no phone calls, no meetings, no noise to fill the space. I didn't know what to do with myself, but as the days went by, something incredible began to happen. I started to hear my own thoughts. I started to listen to the quiet voice inside me that had always been drowned out by the noise of the world. And slowly, in that stillness, I found peace. I realized that the reason I had been so unsettled was because I had never taken the time to sit with myself, to really think about what I wanted, what I needed, and who I was. I had been so focused on external distractions that I had neglected the most important relationship of all, the one with myself. It was in that solitude that I had the chance to reflect on my life, on my choices, and on the path I wanted to take moving forward. I had the space to think deeply, to process my feelings, and to gain clarity. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm. I felt a sense of balance and understanding that I hadn't experienced before. It was as if the quiet allowed me to tune in to the deeper parts of myself, parts that I had been too busy to notice. Since then, I've come to appreciate solitude in a way I never thought possible. I've learned that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. In fact, it's often when we're alone that we find the most peace. We live in a world that's constantly demanding our attention, from work, from technology, from other people, and it's easy to get lost in all the noise. But solitude gives us the chance to step back, to reconnect with ourselves, and to find peace in the quiet moments. Now, I'm not saying that solitude is easy, especially for people who are used to being around others all the time. It takes time to get comfortable with the stillness, to learn how to be at peace with your own thoughts. But I promise you, my dear, that the rewards are worth it. Solitude allows us to slow down, to be present, and to reflect on the things that truly matter. One of the greatest benefits of solitude is that it gives us the space for personal growth. When we're constantly surrounded by others, it's easy to get caught up in the expectations of the world around us. We begin to shape ourselves based on what others think, on what society values. But in solitude, we have the freedom to explore who we truly are, to question our beliefs, and to grow in ways we may not have thought possible. I've learned more about myself in the quiet moments of solitude than I ever did when I was constantly surrounded by others. It was in those moments that I realized what I was truly passionate about, what my values were, and what kind of person I wanted to become. Solitude gave me the clarity I needed to make decisions that were right for me, not based on what others wanted or expected from me. I've also found that solitude can help heal wounds. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us, of knocking us down when we least expect it. But it's in the quiet moments, when we're alone with our thoughts, that we have the chance to process those challenges, to grieve, and to heal. When we're alone, we don't have to put on a mask or pretend to be strong for anyone else. We can simply feel. We can cry. We can let go of the pain that's been holding us back. I remember after a particularly difficult time in my life, I took a long walk by myself just to clear my head. The walk wasn't anything special, just a stroll through the woods with nothing but the sound of birds and the rustling of leaves. But During that walk, something shifted inside me. I felt the weight of my emotions lift, and I began to understand that healing doesn't always come from talking to others or seeking advice. Sometimes it comes from simply being alone, allowing ourselves to feel what we need to feel, and giving ourselves the time and space to heal on our own terms. And it's not just emotional healing that solitude can help with. Solitude is also an opportunity for creative growth. When we're constantly surrounded by distractions, it's hard to hear our own creative voice. But when we're alone, when we're free from the noise of the world, we can tap into our own creativity in a way that feels natural and effortless. Some of my best ideas, my most inspired moments, have come during times of solitude when I had nothing but my thoughts to guide me. But, my dear, the most important lesson I've learned from solitude is the importance of self compassion. It's easy to be hard on ourselves when we're alone. We tend to overthink, to dwell on our mistakes, to criticize ourselves for things that are out of our control. But solitude teaches us to be kind to ourselves. It teaches us to accept our imperfections and to love ourselves for who we are, not for who we think we should be. When we spend time alone, we can nurture ourselves, heal ourselves, and grow in ways that we never could when we're constantly looking for validation from others. Now, let me be clear. Solitude is not about isolating yourself from the world. It's not about shutting people out or avoiding the relationships that matter. No, solitude is about creating space for yourself in the midst of everything else. It's about carving out moments of stillness where you can reflect, recharge, and reconnect with yourself. It's about finding balance between the demands of the world and the need to take care of your own heart and mind. I've come to believe that solitude is a necessary part of living a full and meaningful life. It's not something to fear, but something to embrace. In those moments of solitude, we discover who we are, we heal, and we grow. And when we're able to embrace the peace of being alone, we're better equipped to show up for others, to be present in our relationships, and to give the best of ourselves to the world. So, my dear, I want you to remember this. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a gift. It is an opportunity to reflect, to grow, and to find peace. Don't be afraid of being alone. Embrace those quiet moments and use them to reconnect with yourself. Because in the stillness, you will find the wisdom, the strength, and the peace you need to navigate the world. That, my dear, is the value of solitude. The gift of gratitude. Gratitude. I can tell you from the bottom of my heart that gratitude is one of the most powerful forces in life. When I was young, I didn't fully understand its importance. I thought that happiness came from achieving things, from working hard, from earning more, from having what others had. I thought that if I just got enough, if I just worked hard enough, then I'd be happy. But as the years went by, and as I experienced the ups and downs of life, I realized that gratitude, practicing gratitude every day, is the key to a fulfilling and peaceful life. It's funny, how the simplest things can often be the most profound. Gratitude is one of those things. It's so simple, yet so powerful. It doesn't require money. It doesn't require grand gestures. And it doesn't depend on external circumstances. It's something that comes from within. And it's something that has the ability to change your entire outlook on life. I remember when I first started to understand the power of gratitude. I was going through a tough time. I had just lost a job that I had worked for years to secure, and it felt like everything I had worked for had crumbled before me. I was feeling down, discouraged, and frustrated. I spent a lot of time focusing on what I didn't have, on what had gone wrong, and on the things I had lost. I was caught in a cycle of negativity, and I couldn't seem to break free from it. One day, a friend of mine noticed how down I was and suggested I try something. He told me, every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be big things, just small things, and do it every day. At first, I thought it was a silly idea. What difference could that possibly make? But I was willing to try anything, so I gave it a go. I remember that first day. I sat down with a piece of paper and wrote, I'm grateful for the warmth of the sun on my face. I'm grateful for a good cup of coffee, and I'm grateful for the health of my family. Those were simple things, things I had always taken for granted, but I forced myself to focus on them, to really appreciate them. It felt a little awkward at first, but as I continued to write down things I was thankful for, something began to shift inside me. I started to notice more things throughout my day that I was grateful for. I became aware of the beauty of the world around me, the sound of birds chirping, the feeling of the breeze on my skin, the laughter of children playing. I started to realize that even though I had lost my job, I still had so much to be thankful for. I had my health, I had my family, I had my friends, I had moments of joy, even in the midst of hardship. Gratitude helped me shift my focus from what I didn't have to what I already had. Over time, I began to feel lighter, more at peace. I started to see life through a different lens, one that wasn't clouded by negativity and scarcity, but one that was filled with abundance and appreciation. I found that the more I practiced gratitude, the more I saw reasons to be thankful. It wasn't that my circumstances had changed drastically, but my perspective had. And that made all the difference. Gratitude has a way of transforming your outlook on life. It's easy to get caught up in what's going wrong, to focus on what you don't have, and to compare yourself to others. But when you make gratitude a daily practice, you begin to realize how much you truly have. You begin to notice the small blessings that are all around you, and you start to appreciate them in a deeper way. And, my dear, gratitude doesn't just change your outlook. It also has the power to improve your mental health. I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in the lives of others. When we focus on the things we're grateful for, we begin to shift our mindset from one of lack to one of abundance. We start to feel more hopeful, more content, and more positive. We start to let go of resentment, jealousy, and frustration, and instead, we cultivate feelings of peace, joy, and acceptance. It's no secret that mental health is something that we all need to take seriously. Life can be challenging, and we all face difficulties at different times. But practicing gratitude has a profound impact on our mental well-being. It helps us cope with stress, anxiety, and depression by giving us a tool to shift our focus from what's going wrong to what's going right. It helps us reframe our thoughts and emotions, allowing us to find peace even in the midst of struggle. I remember a time when I was feeling particularly overwhelmed by life. Everything seemed to be going wrong, and I couldn't seem to find a way out of my negative thought patterns. But I made a commitment to myself to write down 3 things I was grateful for every morning, no matter how I was feeling. And let me tell you, it wasn't always easy. Some days I had to dig deep to find something positive to focus on. But over time, I started to notice a shift. I began to feel more grounded, more present, and more at peace with my circumstances. Gratitude became my anchor, helping me stay steady even when life felt turbulent. The more I practiced gratitude, the more I realized how much it had transformed me. It didn't just make me feel better in the moment, it changed the way I viewed life as a whole. I began to see challenges as opportunities for growth, setbacks as lessons to learn from, and difficult moments as temporary hurdles to overcome. Gratitude gave me the strength to keep going even when things were tough. But perhaps the most important thing I've learned about gratitude is that it's not just about feeling thankful, it's about expressing that gratitude. When you share your gratitude with others, it deepens the impact. I found that one of the most powerful ways to practice gratitude is to tell the people around you how much you appreciate them. It could be a simple thank you for a kind gesture or a heartfelt note letting someone know how much they mean to you. When you express gratitude, not only do you make the other person feel valued, but you also reinforce the feelings of gratitude within yourself. I've had the privilege of experiencing many beautiful moments in my life, and when I look back, I realize that the most meaningful ones are the ones where I took the time to express my appreciation. Whether it was telling my children how proud I was of them, thanking my friends for their support, or simply letting your grandmother know how much I loved her, those expressions of gratitude have been the moments that have filled my heart with the most joy. And as I look back on my life, I can tell you this: practicing gratitude has been one of the most powerful things I've ever done. It has brought me peace. It has improved my mental health, and it has deepened my relationships with the people I love. It has taught me to focus on what really matters and to appreciate the beauty in everyday moments. Gratitude has transformed the way I live, and I truly believe that if everyone took the time to practice gratitude daily, the world would be a much more peaceful and joyful place. So, my dear, if there's one thing I want you to carry with you in life, it's this: never underestimate the power of gratitude. Take a moment each day to appreciate the small blessings that surround you. Don't wait for the big moments to feel thankful. Practice gratitude in the everyday, in the simple, in the ordinary. Because when you do, you'll begin to see the world in a new light, and you'll find that your life is filled with more love, more joy, and more peace than you ever thought possible. That, my dear, is the gift of gratitude.